So today we are going to be making 1 pot of beans, and from that 1 pot of beans, we are going to feed ourselves 4 quick, easy, delicious meals. These recipes are perfect for you if you're trying to eat healthier on a tight budget and you don't have a lot of time to cook, but you need something and you don't want to go through the drive-thru. You can easily put together meals in a matter of minutes. Way less time than it would take you to go through the drive-thru lane of any fast food place. And so specifically, this meal prep exercise is built for one person to have 4 meals. And if you are a couple, you could either cook exactly this quantity and have 2 meals for a couple, or 1 meal for a family, or you could double the beans and you could easily feed a couple all 4 of these meals, or a family at least a couple of these meals. Okay guys, let's get in the kitchen. Oh wait, we're already in the kitchen. All right, whatever, let's get over there to the counter and let's get it started. I measured out 2 cups of dry pinto beans and I soaked them overnight, and now they are much larger in size. So I'm gonna go ahead and cook these. I'm going to use some of this low sodium vegetable broth that I have on hand. You can also, to keep the cost of this dish down, you can also use chicken bouillon or vegetable bouillon and water instead. And then after I've added that entire thing of stock, I'm also adding in water till about, it's roughly just below the half fill mark for the Instant Pot. And then I'm seasoning this very lightly with some bay leaves and some chili powder and salt to taste. And then I'm also going to quarter an onion and add that into my beans for flavor, as well as some cilantro and some garlic. And we're just going to put a lid on it and pressure cook. So we need to pressure cook these for about 35 to 40 minutes. I've gone ahead and just set mine for 40 minutes, and we'll be back. Once the pressure cook is completed and we remove the lid, this is what we have. We're just going to remove a lot of those big chunks of onion and garlic and cilantro. And so this is what we have. We have our beans and our broth with a little bit of the onion still left in it. So we are just going to let this cool and put this in our refrigerator. And this is what we're going to use to build our meals this week. So this first recipe is almost just barely a recipe, honestly. It is so simple. You just heat up some of those beans exactly as they are. Put as much or as little of the juice as you would like. And we're just going to create a very quick, easy, and very delicious, if I might say, bean dip. So here is meal number 1, super duper simple. We are just making a very quick, simple bean dip. You can top this base any way you want. Here I have mixed some of the heated pinto beans with avocado. I topped mine with my favorite salsa and some cheese. The cheese is already starting to melt, but it will melt even more once you mix that down into the beans. Serve with tortilla chips, rice, or tortillas, or even a hot baked potato. I just had a handful of tortilla chips with mine. Next up, we are going to throw together some delicious tacos that are so good you're not going to even know these don't come from a restaurant. So we're just going to go ahead and heat our beans up and add a little bit of taco seasoning. I have this one because the ingredients are a little bit cleaner, but you can use any taco seasoning that you would normally use. Once your beans thicken up and you have added your taco seasoning, then we are just going to add in some chicken. You can either use rotisserie chicken like I have done here, or you can use a can of chicken, whichever you prefer. So just to make this very quick, stir in the chicken and let it absorb all of the juices from those beans and all of the flavors from the seasonings. Here I have a tortilla. I am just melting some cheese on it and toasting the tortilla on the skillet. And then I'm going to add that chicken and bean mixture to the taco and top it with a little bit of finely shredded red cabbage. And you can top it with whatever else you want. I'm putting a little bit of light sour cream and my favorite salsa. And that's it. This is like the perfect taco. These were so good, and these literally just took a few minutes to throw together. Next up, we have a delicious breakfast recipe, although Technically, there's no rule book. You could always have this for lunch or dinner as well. That's up to you. I would eat it for any of those 3 meals, but usually we eat this for breakfast. So again, we're going to go ahead and put some of our beans in a skillet with a little bit of our taco seasoning. We're going to mix and we're going to wait till it gets thickened up. Once the beans are done, we are going to cut some hot dog into these are wheels. If you have little children, you might want to consider cutting them in half moons just to avoid the choking hazard. I've also cut up some avocado and queso to serve this with. I have enough eggs here for my husband and I. Most of these for my husband because he eats more than I do. I'm just giving them a good mix with some salt and pepper, and then I'm going to add those into my hot dogs that I have browned up in the skillet. I'm also toasting some tortillas, and we're ready to serve this egg with our tortillas and queso and salsa. So you can just load up your taco, take your tortilla, put a little beans on the bottom, top it with the eggs and hot dog and queso and avocado and your favorite salsa. After making those other meals, this is what's left of our beans, not a whole heck of a lot. I also have some chicken broth that I had made previously and it was in the freezer. Otherwise, you can use chicken bouillon and water or um, chicken broth from a carton or a can. I also have some veggies. I have sliced up some celery, butter, and onions and put that into a skillet. And I have my other ingredients here. And then I have prepped some carrots as well as some zucchini and potato. And I have some parsley that I'm going to cut up. Next, I'm going to make my seasoning mix for my soup, which is going to be some salt to taste. I'm just going to grind some. I usually start with the salt because if you're grinding it, it's hard to tell how much you've got. That way I can visually see how much salt I've got so I don't get too much because salt is important to watch for me for my blood pressure. Then I'm going to add some pepper, fresh ground black pepper to taste, followed by some oregano. And all of these spices are to taste. I think I'm putting about a quarter, maybe a heavy quarter teaspoon of the oregano into the bowl. By doing this spice mix in advance, it just makes it easier later on. Next, we're going to add about a half of a teaspoon of thyme. Maybe just a pinch under a half teaspoon, but pretty much a half teaspoon. And then we're going to add just a tiny bit of cayenne and a tiny bit of crushed red pepper. And if you don't like it spicy, you can leave the crushed red pepper out. Here is our spice mix for our soup. I'm going to start by melting the butter. And I also have added my diced onion and celery. And I'm also adding in some garlic. I edited the video, but basically my veggies are soft now, so I'm going to go ahead once they're soft and add in my chicken bouillon. Well, actually, this is my pre-made chicken broth and the rest of those beans and that seasoning mix that we just got done creating along with all of my veggies. And so we need to allow this to simmer so that the chicken broth, and I realized that I'm probably going to need more chicken broth, so I actually took a second broth cube out of the freezer and I added that in. So now I have more broth in there and I'm just going to cover it with a lid. I've chopped some parsley and I'm going to use a half of this lemon in the soup at the end for flavor. I have brought my broth to a simmer and all my veggies are soft. So now I've got a little bit of flour. It's probably a couple tablespoons that I'm mixing with just a little bit of milk. Because I want to add this to my soup, but I don't want it to be lumpy, so I want to mix it with the milk before adding it to the soup. Here I'm just basically whisking it with a fork to make sure that there's no lumps and bumps. It should be very smooth. And then I'm just going to spoon some of that broth from my soup pot into the flour and milk. And that will just help that the milk will not curdle because it will slowly bring that milk kind of to a warmer temperature. Then you can add it all back into the soup and stir. And we'll just let it simmer for a bit until it thickens. And then we're going to squeeze our lemon juice into our soup. And my cornbread is also ready. I'm serving this alongside some cornbread tonight. And I have garnished it with some fresh parsley and served with this cornbread. And this was absolutely fantastic. And it makes a very large quantity. So you'll not only have dinner tonight, but you'll also have either some to freeze for later to pull out when you're in need of a quick meal or for the next day.